Welcome to the Animation Industry Podcast. My name is Terry, and I am full of turkey. This chat is with the CEO of Brainzoo Studios, a studio he founded in LA 27 years ago, Mo Davoudian. During his time at Brainzoo, he's worked with clients like Marvel, Guardians of the Galaxy, Call of Duty, and Lego, and in this chat he shares what it takes to keep an animation studio ahead of the game after all this time and work with clients like that. So, without further ado, let's jump in. Hi Mo, how you doing today?
Great. How about yourself, Terry?
Good. I'm happy to be chatting. I'm curious, I've been running this podcast for a while, talked to a lot of people. What brings you to the animation industry podcast specifically? Why do you want to share your story?
Well, I figured I've been in the industry long enough, and you've got a great show yourself, so I think it's a good format to come in and share some of my experiences with your audience, and
For sure.
and you've got a great thing going, and so why not be a part of it?
Yeah. Are you gonna make all your employees listen to this afterwards when it comes
Yeah,
out? Yeah.
yeah. I'm gonna talk crap about them. So
I was going to say, to learn about the history of Brainzoo Studios, but you just wanted to talk crap. That's fine. Okay, well, you've run this studio for Brainzoo for quite a few years. I'm wondering, why don't we dial it back just to start? And where did this come from? Because I know that you started this studio kind of out of school, which I think is really cool. So why don't you dial it back and give me the decision criteria of why you started a studio for your school? I think your school assignments, was it?
well, partially. So I was at Art Center College of Design in Pasadena. So my major was industrial design, but I had always been into entertainment and animation. And while I was there, I took a semester and went to Art Center sister campus in Switzerland. And while I was there, the workload was a heck of a lot less in Europe than it was here. So I was kind of got bored with the work that I was doing. So I went in a computer lab and just sat down and started learning 3D and working on my 3D skills that I had already kind of picked up. And so while I was there, it's like that's when Jurassic Park came out. I was like, that's it. This is what I want to do. There's no way I'm going into industrial design or product design. I'm going straight into entertainment. So I called one of my teachers at the time who had started a little gaming company called Kronos Digital. And he said, hey, when you come back, hit me up and then maybe you can do an internship. So when I got back, I did a year-long internship with him working on a game called Phantasmagoria.
Yeah.
Goes way back.
It's like a woman in a horror realm game.
Yeah.
But she's like real? She's like live action?
She's live action. The characters are live action. So I was building digital sets and that kind of stuff. So I did like a whole year of this and got some serious production experience that it was hard to get.
What program were you using to create that? That's like in the 90s.
Yeah, it was called Alias.
Alias
became Maya.
Okay.
So that was like, I think we were on version like 2 or 3 at the time. So if you could make something glow or reflect, you were a god at the time. So that's where I kind of started out. And then when I went back to school after doing my internship, I got together with a buddy of mine who was an exceptional designer, and he had equally the same passion for doing entertainment, creatures, and design and that kind of thing. So his name's Farzad Bahramian. And he eventually went on to do video games like Oddworld and, worked at started one of those founding members of High Moon Studios that Activision purchased, so on and so forth. But we got together and said, hey, why don't we do a short film together? You're really great at designing. I'm really, got quite a bit of experience doing 3D. Let's do this together. So we did, and we created this short film that hadn't been done before at school. Called Persepolis 2, and it was sci-fi, and we combined live action with CG, and it was like really kind of rudimentary when you look at it now, but at the time it was like hadn't been done before, right? Yeah. So we created this short film, and invited industry vets to come in and check it out. Both of us were getting offers right and left because of it, and then I kind of just looked at it and went, this is probably an interesting time because this CG thing is really exploding. and there isn't a lot of people that really know how to do this. So there was a need in the market that was exploding, and I just kind of instinctively looked at it and went, "Oh, I could just start a company." So I got together with a couple of guys that were outside. One was a business guy, another guy with had the money, and then bought some software, bought some computers, and then right the day I graduated, actually it was a semester before I graduated, we had already kind of started. And so once I came out of Art Center, it was I literally only took 1 week off and then went straight to work.
Wow. How
And
did you get your
that's
first clients? You're just a group of guys with some software and computers and good heads on your shoulder, and you were working right away.
yeah. So well, one of the partners at the time, he had uh some clients that were on the business side, right? So they were corporate clients that we started with, and then on my side, because I had worked at Kronos for that year, I met some people there that by the time I graduated had moved on. So one of them had moved on to Activision,
Hmm.
and so I looked at cinematics as like this is the direction I want to go with the animation side. So um, got in touch with him. He knew the level of work I could do. He knew what I was capable of doing. So slowly started to feed us work up on that end. On the corporate side, we started doing some things for Intel and some other people, and then started up an internet division to the company at the same time, which internet was just starting out.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's how we started getting the first clients, was just based on personal relationships we already have with people.
Nice. Wow. So, okay. So you're a group of guys, you're potentially making bank with the internet boom and CG boom at the same time. At what point did you decide, to not specialize in like websites and internet stuff and then just do CG and special effects and cinematography and things like that? Like
Right.
where did the diversion happen and how was that decision?
So the diversion actually started to happen like around 2000 because both sides of the company started to grow. The internet side was just like exploding because of the need for it. And then on the animation side that I was heading up, that was growing significantly too. We were doing intros, we started doing commercials for games. We had also done some visual effects on a couple of movies like Armageddon and Mighty Joe Young, which we got hired to like head up lighting or do effects and that kind of stuff. And so we just looked at it and went, you know what, working in film is great, but there's a lot of money here, but at the same time, it's like there's not a lot of creative control. There's not a lot of creatives. It's not storytelling really. It's somebody telling you, I don't like this, I like that, right? And Michael Bay likes to yell at people, and that only goes so far. So we started just looking at that, and then also the internet side. We were supplementing the work on like the website for Starship Troopers and even Armageddon, doing animation and characters, or even for the Muppets. Um, so we
That's
just kind of
crazy.
looked
You're
at,
getting all
yeah,
these like giant clients right away.
yeah. It took a few years to get there, but yeah, it started because there was such a need on the internet and also in 3D that it was both sides were growing at a rapid pace, and you couldn't find artists. It was hard to find artists on both sides.
Hmm.
So it became very difficult. But then when it kind of hit around 2000 and 2001 kind of came around, it's like the internet was starting to just kind of waffle. And so we decided we were going to just sell off that side of the business and just split the company.
Oh
And
wow.
at that point, once the company split, um, I took the animation and went off on my own. So then it was pretty much on, I was the one heading it up and dealing with everything else.
So these original partnership you had with these guys, I don't know how many of you were, but you sold off the internet side and then you
Yeah.
said like goodbye, I'm just gonna do animation, and you kind of took some employees with you or something
Well,
like.
it was a couple of things was happening. So the internet, if you remember, like around 2001 after 9/11 happened, it's like everything crashed, like the entire
Yeah.
economy just
Yeah.
tanked. So that in conjunction where I think it was like an election year before that and new boxes were coming out. Whenever that happens, it's a bad year when it comes to product releases. So we were suffering at that time on the animation side. The internet was really suffering. So we just kind of looked at it as like, all right, we can sell this side of it off. And because the other partners were heading up that division. One of them went, the other one decided to go do other things, and then I said, okay, well, I'll just continue on doing this.
I see.
So that's how it just became just me heading up BrainZoo.
Yeah.
But just prior to that, we had done some really great projects that were setting us up for when the economy did come back, that we would have, good portfolio pieces. Like we'd worked on Star Wars Demolition, we had worked on Ready Rumble Boxing 1 and 2. I don't know if you remember those games. But like I think the second one, Michael Jackson was in it because he loved the
Oh my
game so
gosh.
much. Yeah. So those were really great portfolio pieces for us to put into our company reel as we moved on.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm just wondering, everything happened for you so fast right out of school. And what are some of the challenges of coming right out of school and starting a business and then running it, and then 5 years in reaching like an economic downturn and then trying to pick up the pieces, and like it sounds like a crazy time for you.
It was. I was when I came out, I was always kind of just wondering, it's like, on the business side, it's like, what am I missing? I can read books. I'm reading books all the time to figure out what am I missing. But I didn't know what I was missing because I didn't know what I needed to know. I didn't know what,
Yeah. Yeah.
there was some gaps in there that it just definitely felt like, there's just something not right that I'm not getting. So, and with the economic downturn that happened, it just like kind of amplified that even more because, your personality can only take it so far. You can get out there and sell, with your personality, but then when you're running the business and doing projections and cash flow and those kind of things,
Yeah.
I think
How big was your company at the time of 9/11, I guess, in 2001?
so. On the animation side, we were 20, and then on the internet side, I want to say we were another 60 people.
Wow. Oh my goodness. So you're
Yeah.
like, I don't know, 20, 25, 26, heading up a division of 20 people in a business and blah, blah, blah. That's a very different path than a lot of people take when they go to animation school, get their first internship.
Yeah. I mean, it's something you could do at the time. I mean, people ask me that question. I just got, I was dumb. I was young, dumb, and needed the money. So that's why I did it.
Fair enough. Do you think it's
Mm.
possible to do it nowadays with,
I I think it's very difficult today to do it
yeah,
because the need is not, the market is not there because there's so much competition out there right now to just come out of school and start something. It's very difficult because
yeah.
the number one thing everybody is looking for is experience and quality.
So like, there's tons of animation going on these days, maybe arguably more now than ever before. But like what clients are looking for is not, they're not looking for somebody fresh out of school to kind of put together some pieces and artists and things and make something for them. They're looking for something much more high caliber, professional. Is
Well,
that why?
my clients, the clients that I deal with, they're all looking for quality. If there's a level of quality bar, let's say on the gaming side that they have attained, and they're not willing to go below that
Yeah.
at all, by any means. So, there's certain industries you can go into that don't require those kind of
Yeah, like
that
maybe like
level of
motion
work.
graphics or something. Oh, sorry,
Motion
sorry.
graphics,
Yeah, maybe this is a little bit off topic, but you were saying, the economic downturn, you don't know what you don't know.
yeah.
You have a company of 20 people, super challenging. Like, how did you get through that?
So that was the first one. So we just were fortunate in 2001 that we had clients that liked us, liked the work that we did, so they kept feeding us work. So we were able to slowly grow and continue on. The next economic downturn that happened in 2008, that was the one that was very significant.
Hmm.
Because just prior to that, it was, we were coming off of like some really great projects that we had been working on. It was a project called Dark Watch that we did for Capcom or High Moon Studios. It was really awesome and it was really fun to work on. And then there were several other things that we did for other clients. We started working with Marvel and Disney, and so it started to kind of the base of the client started to grow outside the gaming business and started to expand out. And then when it hit 2001, we were working on three things. We were working on a game called Splatterhouse, Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I forget what the third one was that we were working on at the same time. And like as we were working on those things, the economy just dumped. and we were slated for other projects that were coming up, and the clients all pulled back because they wanted to keep the money internal. So we started doing stuff internal, and we were kind of just stuck with like, holy crap, what are we going to do? And we have our facility, we have, employees, we have, payroll and all that stuff. So what ended up happening was we had to let certain people go.
Yeah.
There was a core team that the company kind of started with, and we kind of maintained that core team. And what we wind up doing is we had to go down to kind of like a halftime scenario. And while we were in that halftime scenario, as a team, we kind of got together and said, this is probably going to last about a year. Could be longer, but this is going to last about a year. I know that there's product people need to get done. People are still releasing, whether it's games or commercials or those kind of things. Like, what do we need to do at this point that will set us up for success when the economy comes back?
Yeah.
So at the time, it's like the rendering pipelines were starting to change into physical-based renderings, like V-Ray, Mental Ray, those kind of things. So things were starting to shift around where it was becoming more accessible inside the software packages. And so what we kind of got together and went, this is the direction we need to go. We need to change our rendering pipeline and our pipeline altogether and start adding in tools and building out tools that are going to make things simpler, faster, and more efficient for us to work. And so once we started doing that, then smaller project clients started to come around, like commercials. We started doing commercials for EA, for Monopoly, and we did a few commercials for Lego Star Wars, Lego Indiana Jones. And so we started to deploy this new methodology into those projects. And immediately what we saw was like the level of quality just jumped incredibly. It was different. It was like a different company altogether. So that was like the one thing that we learned from that was like whenever like the chips are down, we need to like retool, refigure things out, get ready for when the economy comes back so that we're at a more cutting edge place than we were before.
So you had to downsize, and then you didn't have a lot of client work. So you decided to, like you said, set yourself up for success when the clients came back. So you refigured out your pipeline, looked for some efficiencies and where you could make strides ahead of where you were before. And then when you said Monopoly and Lego, et cetera, those just kind of came in through whatever marketing you're doing, and then you were able to like really make amazing stuff that maybe other studios weren't doing at the same time.
There was very few of my competition doing work in the game business that had transitioned over. I think there was only one or two studios, and then at the time it wasn't like all the visual effects houses were in on the game business. It was, they came later, but where they were just starting to get into that. So we jumped in on this and just went, we need to always hit technology and figure out what's going to raise the quality bar of the studio.
Totally, yeah.
And so as a collective, we kind of got together and did that. And I had a really great group of people that were, understood the economic challenges we were all facing together and were willing to sacrifice work half time and also, come in and like really figure stuff out so that when the clients did come back, we would be in a much better place. So that halftime thing lasted, I want to say, maybe about a month or two at the most. And then when the clients came in, then it was like a slow trickling in of clients coming in. But as soon as the project was done, we were able to put it on the website on demo reel. It would immediately be there so that the vision or the visual of and the impression of the company would change immediately.
Yeah.
And it did.
That sounds like a very direct result of your efforts in finding success in your business. I'm wondering, it sounds like pushing technology and kind of figuring that out within the pipeline has been kind of your success over the years. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, that's true.
How do you keep pushing technology when you have to relearn new things? It's moving so fast these days. Like, how do you ensure that you're ahead of the game when you're just figuring out one thing and then the next thing comes out?
Well, I would just have to say that, like, instinctively, I would say that that's the one thing I would say. I myself personally have, um, I don't want to brag about myself, but it was like good. I was
This
just to
show is
kind of,
about you. You can
all
brag
right,
about yourself.
let's enough about me. Let's talk about me. So it was just being able to extrapolate what technologies are potentially going to be used in the future. We actually started using Unreal Engine around 2001, 2002
I
because
didn't even know it was that old, to be
yeah,
honest.
it's been there a while. I mean, we used to play one of their games, Unreal Tournament. Everybody in the studio loved playing it. It was the kind of thing that I think it was one Christmas Eve we were all at a party, and then all kind of looked at each other. You guys want to go back to the office and play Unreal? And it was like, yeah. And then we all
Wow.
just left the party and went to play Unreal. It was really great. And we just stayed up
Really
all
great for
night
you
doing
guys.
it.
Everybody else is like, where's what happened?
Where'd everybody go? So at that point, I was looking at this technology going, yeah, it's more rudimentary now, but this is the future right here. This is the future of filmmaking, not just games. This is the
Yeah.
future of visual effects. This is the future of filmmaking, TV shows, anything animated. This is it right here. So we started, prior to that, we were doing like pre-rendered work, like rendering stuff out of like Maya, right? And then I saw this tech and I said, I need to get in, we need to get on projects that utilize this technology and start doing cinematics in real time. Because this allows us, not only we're storytellers, but it allows us to learn this technology and move forward with it, which we started doing. So we started getting one, two clients here and there, and then slowly building up a roster of working on this technology and at the same time deploying cinematics and storytelling in this way. And that led to ushering in a whole slew of other things in the past 10 years that
Yeah.
we were doing.
Wow. I'm wondering, you've mentioned a lot of big branded clients. How, you were a very small company starting out, you're much bigger now. How have you been able to attract these clients over the years? Do you work with reps? Do you climb into their DMs? Like, do you just put out amazing work? It's word of mouth. Like, how do you end up working on Guardians of the Galaxy, for instance? Like,
Oh, so it's been based off of the work quality and building relationships over time.
gotcha. So
For
like when you're looking for new work, you don't like you don't like, do a massive call out, email everybody, call up your whatever. It's more just like you have your formula is do good work, build relationships, and that will keep us stable over time.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely do have business development that goes out there and searches out new clients and brings those clients in. But the majority of the work that we do has been repeat customers.
Yeah. How have you seen that change over the years? Your company's been around for what, 25,
28,
28, 28
28.
years now. I'm sure it's much different, operating out of California. Do you see like what has been the big shift in kind of customers you've been working with over the years? And
Um,
has that been kind of intentional as well? Like you said, you were kind of looking for clients that you could make Unreal Engine projects with, etc.
yeah, honestly, in the 90s and the early 2000s till the mid 2000s, it was just a bunch of us geeks who were in this business that just kind of went, hey, you do good work. Hey, I like this kind of stuff you guys do. You want to do some stuff together? And it was like, that's how you did it. Right. And
Great.
then you started building your relationship on there, and they moved to other places and recommend you, and you continue doing good work, and your reputation grows. And we're fortunate that we've had a good reputation for the work quality that we do, and the work speaks for itself.
Yeah.
And so that is the main way that we were doing it. And then the way the clients have changed over the years now, it's been, well, the expectations have gone up higher. The expectations are incredibly different than what they used to be. Um, and so the getting the clients is kind of still the same because you built relationships and it's based off of your work product. But then being able to close deals is more difficult because there's more competition. So the clients have more um, resources to go to in order to get things done. And with tax credits and things being cheaper in other sides of the world, it really ultimately comes down to dollars and cents. And your relationship is not the number one thing.
Hmm.
It comes down to dollars and cents because somebody above them is telling them that we have to spend less money.
Yeah.
So that's one big change that's happened. But the expectations of clients has really kind of gone up exponentially.
So how do you compete when, you're doing your best work possible, you have your relationships, and then it comes down to price at the end of the day, and you end up losing projects because somewhere in another country they're able to come up with a pretty
Yeah.
similar quality for much cheaper.
Really, what that part comes down to is there are certain projects we are not going to be a good fit for when it comes to budgets. Because if you're going to us for an estimate and you're going to China or India for an estimate, we're always going to lose.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so we have to look at it that way. We would always lose those battles. The ways that we've been able to just maintain has been maintaining, doing something that other studios aren't doing.
Hmm.
So that's the one thing, and that goes back to the technology thing. So
Yeah.
if you're an expert at something they're not doing, or you got a certain look or a style that other people aren't doing, then that gives you the edge, right?
Why would I go to you today for a project? Like what is that kind of unique selling proposition that you're giving me that other studios don't have?
So our pipeline is one of our biggest selling points because
Hmm.
we are more and more studios are getting into the real time thing, but we have 20 years of experience doing real time. Like we established the pipeline years ago that makes it efficient for us to do the work that we do. The other thing that we're able to do is the pipeline and the way we do our work allows us to do things faster and quicker than other people, but maintaining a high level of quality.
Makes
And
sense.
that's the other just differentiating factor for us. Like we did 2 animated features for Marvel in 7 months,
Which is
and
crazy.
which is crazy. Nobody else in the world has been able to do that, but hey,
From
there we
start to
are.
finish, like from
Start,
getting the script to delivering
yeah,
like you like that's less than having a baby. The time it takes to
yeah,
have a baby. You've
yeah.
created
But
a
it
feature
hurts more.
film.
It just hurts more.
That's insane.
But
That's amazing.
yeah, it's one of those things that it was like, again, just looking at technology. What can we do using real time? It was one of our things, and just pushing whatever methodologies and techniques that we can in order to
Yeah.
to stay keep that competitive edge.
So okay, so you've been running this business for quite a few years. You developed the technology aspect. You've got a great pipeline. You've got 50 something employees. From a personal standpoint, like, I don't think, I mean, at least it doesn't sound like you ever wanted to start running your own business when you were, in school the first time around. What's been the most challenging and maybe rewarding things personally to push yourself this far?
I would say the most challenging thing has been, I'm an artist at heart, right?
Yeah.
I'm an artist at heart, and so when I started this business, it was all about the art, and it's all about what's on the screen. And like those gaps that I was missing when it came to business has always been the challenging thing.
Hmm.
Which eventually I filled those gaps in by getting an MBA and figuring out I was like, oh, this is where I was going wrong there. Oh, this is where I was going wrong there. So
What
it
were some of
allowed me
the,
to,
yeah, just maybe specifically, like what were some of the big gaps that your MBA taught you? And I think it's interesting that you got an MBA because, you're already running a business.
yeah.
The other options might be, get a mentor, talk to other studios, or an MBA, like going back to school and spending a lot of time in the books.
Yeah.
Sounds like something I don't want to do again.
Well, yeah, no, I'm done. I'm not going back to school. But what I'm saying is like I did get a mentor at one point, and like the stuff that he was telling me, I was like, I already know this stuff, but I still felt like I was missing something.
Hmm.
There was a process, procedure, those kinds of things that, when I sit across someone who's a CEO of a bigger company, and it was just like there was always like, something I don't,
Yeah.
right? And which is why he's in that position. He knows something that I don't. And what is it that he knows that I don't know? So a lot of it came down to on the finance side, on the
Hmm.
financial side of things. Um, how to appropriately deal with that side of it. Even though I had accountants and bookkeepers and those things, and lawyers
What do you
taking
mean
care of that
financial
stuff.
side of things, like cash flow and like, figuring out your accounting, whatnot? Like,
Some of that stuff, yeah, like cash flowing things, budgeting things properly, making sure that, when we're going out and looking to get loans or getting investors or doing any of those things, like you got to be able to speak the language, right?
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
got to be able to talk the talk when you're sitting across from someone and not just kind of be like, I don't know what the hell you said or she said. Um, and even on the marketing side, it's like being effectively do a marketing plan, setting up a marketing plan, doing the research, doing the industry researches, doing all of the competitive analysis that you need to do. That that stuff that you don't really. I wasn't taught that kind of stuff when I was at art center. I read the books, but I was like, yeah, is this really right? I'm not sure if this is right because the
Yeah.
books that I would read, it was like opinion-based books. It wasn't like this is the proper way to do it.
Right. Right.
Um, so when I did go down and get the MBA, it was eye-opening. I had not looked at my business. Like I sat down and looked at the business while I was at the MBA program, looking at it, going, we're taking a shotgun approach to how we're approaching like marketing and trying to get work in the industry. And it was like, really, we need to be more strategic. Instead of shotgun, we need to be more like a sniper. It's like taking, this is the example I was given. It's like you want to take a row a boat out into the middle of the lake to catch fish, right? But you've got this giant net and you're throwing this net all the way out, but it's got all of these big holes in it, right? Because it's a big net. And so when you're pulling it in, you're catching very few fish because they're escaping out of the net because it's such a big net you're dropping. Because why don't you just drop a smaller net here, kind of conquer that, and then drop
Yeah.
another one there, another one there, another one there, and then what? That's how you'll build your business out. And I
Totally.
was like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I went, holy crap! It's not just like doing all of these services at once. So once I did that and I reduced with the kind of stuff that we did, it was like much more beneficial to us.
Wow. Yeah, I was going to ask, like, what were the immediate or maybe long-term effects of you taking this MBA to redirect your, strategies a little bit more with the business?
Well, I was able to do an analysis of all of our competitors, what they're doing, what we're doing, and then just figure out, it's like, where's our different, what makes us different than them? What is it that they're doing that we're doing, but they're doing better? So there's no need for us to do that right now because they're doing it better. Where are the areas that they're not doing that we're better at? And those are the areas that we go on focus on. And so in a short term, it worked out well because then it was like, all right, we're only focusing on these things. So because those things we're really good at, and those are areas that were not being outsourced to other places, or they were being outsourced but they weren't getting the quality bar. We were able to seize on that.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and so then we kind of just built out from there.
You also mentioned, you're an artist first and foremost. How much of the process are you involved in these days where you're actually doing art rather than running a business?
So as time has gone on, I mean, I know how to use almost uh, all of the same software as my artists do.
So if
So I know
everybody quits tomorrow, you're still good to complete the
I can
the
still do
client
it.
project.
And there are times where it's like the team needs a hand. They're like, hey, can you get in here and get all this lighting done or get this done or that done? I was like, yeah, I got time. I'll get it and jump in there and do it. I actually enjoy doing that part because that's like
Nice.
my hobby became my passion and my work, right?
Yeah.
So I do enjoy doing it. Um, uh, to further go down on that, answering your question, it's in my in the business, like I don't get to do as much as I would like to, but what I'm also trying to do is uh, not be the bottleneck because I used to be the bottleneck because all of the not only the business stuff but all of the creative used to go through me.
Yeah.
I was the last word on everything, and it's like you have to look at it as like I don't want to work. I want to work on my business, but I don't want to work in my business
Okay.
because then I become the bottleneck.
That sounds like a huge ego shift though, to, have the power, the creative direction power for everything and the business, and then hand that over to somebody else and trust them and be like, you're good. Like I built this from scratch myself and now I'm no longer part of that. Like how do you complete that mental shift in your mind?
Well, I had to look at it as like it's not about me, it's about we, the business, and it's about the artists. And some of the guys that I work with, I've been working with for 20 plus years, so I trust them implicitly.
Yeah.
They know it's like they know what I would be commenting on or looking for. So it's like you guys can do this. You got this handled. And at some point, you have to hand it off to people you trust. You have to trust the artists that you're working with.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of artists that they'll prove themselves not trustworthy, right? But you just kind of have to sift through and find the ones you can trust that have the foresight, the creative, and the attitude in order to get things done. And then those are the people you hand it off to.
Totally, totally. I'm wondering, what like looking at your studio, can you just give a snapshot of kind of what the studio looks like today? Like size wise and projects wise, like how many you take on a year, et cetera.
Yeah, so the studio is when COVID hit, just before, yeah, there's the COVID talk.
We're
Just
still
before,
recently coming out of that,
yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah. When COVID hit, it was, we all had to go remote, but we had already kind of set up a remote, and that was one of the things that I saw that was coming. It's like there's going to be the future of this industry is not going to be people in a studio. The future of this industry is going to be people from around the world working as a studio.
Yeah.
And so what we wind up doing is like, all right, when COVID hit, we said, all right, we'll give this a year. If the year is up, do we hold on to the brick and mortar?
Hmm.
And so when the year hit, we had already been working on projects and getting things done, and we're very productive. Quality didn't suffer. The work was maintained and actually went up. We were getting more done. And I think a lot of people were happy. There's very few people that were like, yeah, I want to drive an hour to get to the studio and an hour back to get home.
Right.
And so we shut down the brick and mortar. So we
Wow.
became completely virtual. And so not only do we not have our own equipment anymore because all the equipment's in the cloud. So servers in the cloud, the equipment's in the cloud, and we can work with anybody from anywhere around the world in
Yeah.
the system that we have, so they can dial in without, and we got good internet connection. We have access to more artists around the world. We'll become more financially competitive because we're able to source more people from around the world. So the studio, went up and came down in terms of size when we were in COVID, and then we're on the growth path again. So we're about 30 right
Wow. Okay. Amazing. Um, there's a lot of studios that I've talked to that are, well, and that also just exist that are kind of around the same size as you. And,
now.
they're also kind of going globally, not having a brick and mortar office as well. What is the future of Brain Zoo Studios? Like when you project it 15, 20 years,
Yeah.
the animation boom that we're all experiencing from CG and 2D and tweening and all that stuff is not that old when you consider it.
Yeah.
What does the future look like for studios of your size?
So I think that for studios of our size, it is going to be a virtual studio. So you're going to see more virtual studios popping up, and some will grow and they'll grow to massive numbers, and others will stay small. Our future is not going to be a gigantic studio.
Yeah.
The last time we grew to over 80 people, it was like people were getting lost in the studios. Like, who are all these people? Like, nobody knew each other anymore. It became like we were always very tight, small family unit.
Yeah.
Even though we had grown substantially, but it was like there were still people who knew each other and hung out with each other. And when you grow really big, the culture shifts and changes after 50 people.
Totally. Yeah, that makes sense. You're growing from small to
Yeah.
medium to big.
And you get subcultures growing inside of your business. That's the other thing you learn in MBA. Is like once you hit 50, then you're to get subcultures growing in your company that you have no control over.
Yeah.
So the future I see is like we're going to stay smaller, so we can stay creative, we can stay, still do the same level of work that we're doing. But
So, okay, that's an interesting thought to me because you just said you're going to be online only and potentially hiring people from different countries to, the benefits of that are staying competitive, greater roster of amazing artists, bringing in different skill sets and different cultures and things like that. But if you're trying to maintain culture, isn't that kind of difficult to do, online and
mm,
with people in different time zones?
it is tough to maintain culture when you're a virtual studio. It's been, I think, for everyone who's done virtual work, it's hard to maintain a culture, but I think there's a give and take in there. The give is that you're able to access greater number of artists. It will lift up the studio, the quality of the studio, the quality of each other and the other artists. And the take of it is that you're not in the same room. You don't get to bounce off ideas and have that interaction that makes being in a studio so sweet. But I think in the long run, as people get more and more used to this kind of work, that uh, building the culture is going to be more interaction, even if it is via video or uh, video chats in this way. And if you're a large enough studio that you can have events that people can attend, or you can afford to bring them out for those events, then you have an opportunity to really kind of connect with people.
Makes sense. What is preventing you from growing to 80 people, 100 people, 1,000 people when it's now online and you can easily, take on a new project and hire a bunch of people if the culture is changing in that sense?
So it's not the challenge is not finding the people. There's a lot more people out there now than ever before, and because we have a global reach when it comes to artists, that's not the issue. Finding the people is not the issue. Properly being able to deploy your pipeline and your methodology across all of those people, especially new people from around the world, that's the challenge. And who's going to manage all that?
Gotcha.
So you have to have your lieutenants and your generals in the right places and positions with the experience in order to be able to oversee those things effectively. Gotcha. When we grew to 80, it's like we had the right people in place in order to be able to do that. So we were able to manage it, but still it was, once we passed that 50-person threshold, it was like some things became a little difficult. You actually needed more management in order to be able to manage.
Totally.
Whereas prior to that, it was like one producer.
Yeah. Yeah, fair. And like that's not specifically a line you want to cross where you have 10 generals and you're managing 10 generals instead of just one type of deal.
No, I would cross that threshold, of course, if the projects are there and the right clients are there. The right clients is very important to have there. There's only certain group of clients we prefer to work with now than before. Mm-hmm. And having those clients and having long-term projects makes sense in order to have a studio like that.
Yeah.
When you're working, let's say, on an animated feature, or you're working on cinematics that are going to take a year and a half to do, makes sense to grow like that. But if it's like, hey, a month here, a month here, a month here, it doesn't really make sense to.
Makes sense. Maybe a last question to kind of wrap things up. You've been in this industry for quite a while. You've worked on some really, really cool things, worked with some great clients that other people would love to work with. What has kind of kept you going this whole time? And what is the dream, your ultimate dream with pursuing this versus, you went through some economic downturns. Why didn't you say, like, this is too hard, I'm going to get something more stable for myself in some other area, for instance?
Oh, I say that all the time.
Okay, never mind.
No, it's one of those things where it's like, people ask me, it's like, oh, I want to run a studio. And I ask them, like, well, do you get motion sickness? And they're like, what? And I go, because you're going to be a lot of ups and downs like this. So, there are those challenging times. And like, really what kept me going and propelled me forward is like the future. Another part of our future is going to be doing original content. Yeah. Doing original IP and content. Okay. And that's something that we dabbled in a few years ago when we started to do our own short films. I found that, we were having a hard time based off of client deadlines, not being able to deploy all of the technology we wanted to, or all of the quality bars that we wanted to, because either they weren't asking for it or they weren't paying for it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it was hard to like do things that we really wanted to try out. So we again, as a team, got together. We came up with a couple short films and we're like, all right, here's all the stuff that we want to do, we want to push, and we want to create new tools for it, blah, 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 all of these things. So we did a couple of short films that weren't just short films. They were created specifically with the intent of them being IP. So it was like, you don't just do a short film. To me, you don't do a short film and just say it's just a short film. It's like, well, why not create an IP at the same time, because then it has more value for you. Yeah. So we created some
businessman thinking, right?
Yeah, there. Businessman thinking. So
I don't want to create short films for the arts. I want to create it for the
Well, we did
business.
it for the art, but then it has to have a business
No,
component
of
to it.
course, of course. I'm the
Yeah,
exact same way. It's I
yeah,
totally understand that.
yeah. Okay. So, and that was it. So we created a couple short films, and then we started dabbling in the original IP, and so we've been out pitching while we're still doing service work for our clients, and that's kind of the future.
Interesting. So
That's
you
where
want
I
to
love it to go.
So your idea with creating your own IP is to sell it to a broadcaster or network, for instance. You don't want to create like, some studios have a YouTube channel and they develop an audience there and end up, publishing stuff like that. Or you want somebody to buy it first before you produce it, I guess.
Well, on those particular projects, yes, because the quality bar is so high on them that it's not something
Yeah, you need
internally to the
funding.
studio. Yeah, you need funding for that kind of thing. But we have been talking about, we're doing stuff that is uh, more manageable. And so, even having animators take assets that we already have for these things and create little short films on their own. And maybe those are the things that we put online. But it's one of those things that just, it has to be the right idea in order
Totally.
for us to like jump in and create a YouTube channel and really
Right.
invest in it.
So, okay, so you have a studio behind you, you've got tons of employees, you've got state-of-the-art technology, you've got the pipeline, you've got reputation, you have clients in all the major studios, and you've got relationships, and you're developing your own IP. Like what's preventing you from getting something like, obviously, there's the whole bureaucracy and politics and timing with getting something sold, but like it sounds like you're in a great position to have something get picked up. Like, what is the biggest
Mhm.
thing preventing you from reaching that?
Well, I would say it's the timing has to be right on it and who you're sitting across the table with. We have been out pitching the ideas that we have to the various studios over the past, 2, 3, 4 years. And I can't tell you how many times we've gone in, pitched it. It's been a really great pitch. And then like within, I don't know, a month, 2, 6 months, that person's no longer there.
Yeah.
And like you're back at zero and you got to go through this whole thing all over again. You got to find out who the person is, be able to contact them, get in front of them. And then by the time you go through that process, like who knows what happened.
Right.
There was a lot of people that we met with over at Netflix, and they're like gone. So it's like, who's next, right?
Exactly.
Um, so that's part of it, and the other one is really being able to sit across from someone who's, I want God, I want to just be blunt and say that there's somebody who's got the vision and is brave, who's not chicken. Like there's
Yeah.
a
We
lot
need
of chickens
less
out there.
less sequels and copycat things made. Like the amount of times that I go on like XYZ broadcaster, won't name anybody. And I'm like, this everything looks the same and boring. Like we need something fresh and new, and nobody's willing to take those risks right now, especially as like all the streaming services are super competing.
Yeah,
And like, I don't know, it's the golden age of trying out everything was years ago already.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, I agree with you. It's like Star Wars got made because there was one person that had the vision and was brave.
totally, totally.
And this is what you got out of it. It's that's the kind of person you're hoping you're sitting across, because most of the people that we've visited or worked or have sat across with, it's either they don't get it, or they don't have the vision for it,
Yeah,
or they're just afraid of their losing their position. I mean, I sat across from a guy that has a major Hollywood studio. I'm not going to name the studio, but sat across this person. And like we're pitching the stuff to him, and then at the end we just asked him, like, "Hey, so you've been here like 13 years. How come you've only done like one project?" And he goes, "The less I do, the less likely it is that I'll get fired." Literally,
nobody can blame this person for failures if they don't do anything.
exactly. And it was like, "Oh my God, this is what we're dealing with."
Well, totally. And the other thing that I've come across is you have the certain person who is a development person, but they don't have a creative spirit, I guess. So they're
Hmm.
more or less looking at, mermaids are popular right now. And so let's do something mermaids. Or, we have the stats that show that this type of show is going to be successful with this formula. And it's
Hmm.
like, well, then you're just why am I pitching you if you already know exactly what you want? Just create create your kind of cookie cutter TV show, and that's fine. Like,
Yeah,
you need somebody who is excited about something new and trying something different. Like you said, a little bit of bravery totally makes
yeah.
sense.
I
But
think, with a lot of shows out there, there's a lot of creative people out there that have a really good idea, but they may not be really amazing at pitching the idea.
that's fair. That's true.
But that doesn't mean that the idea isn't amazing. So just because you don't have a good pitch doesn't mean the idea is bad. So it's having people that can see through that and see that, hey, this person may be socially awkward, but then has a really great idea that could potentially be amazing for us.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man,
I'm that guy.
I could talk about this all day.
We sure
Well,
can.
I won't take all your time, but is there anything else that you wanted to share or talk about as we've chatted about where you're from, your journey, starting the studio, going through some tough times, getting your MBA to figure out how to push it to the next level, how you get clients, and where the future is. Is there anything else that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I know that you have artists that watch the show,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like
yeah.
one of the key things that we have come across with artists that really make them successful is like we really are looking for people that are self-starters that don't require that want to actually be creative and not looking for being told what to do. And we're
Hmm.
seeing a lot of that where it's like people are looking to be told what to do rather than I'm going to be creative. I'm going to do
So,
something
so what
here
do you
that's
mean?
creative.
You're a new artist, you get your first job, and you have to be bold to push forward your own kind of ideas and creativity rather than just doing exactly like character walks from A to B, getting there.
No, what I'm saying is, well, partially that when you go into a position that a when somebody hands you a shot and says do this shot, obviously you're asking a lot of questions like what is this character doing? What's the emotion? What's the point of the shot? What's the point of the scene? And what are we trying to emotionally get across? And then run with it and like do your art instead of saying, what do you want me to do?
Right, right.
And or not paying attention to when you get notes.
Gotcha. Man,
Like
that's sounds like basic, but you're finding that people are, hmm.
that, that happens. Like there's been quite a few times where you just go, I just gave that note, really honestly. And
I wonder if it's because like back in the day, to get into the industry, you had to be so passionate about it uh, to even find an opportunity. I find that with stop motion specifically because it's so
yeah,
niche. The only people that are in stop motion are so ridiculously passionate about it that
yeah,
they make it happen versus like, there are animation schools just pumping out students every year right now,
yeah,
which can lead to maybe a little bit
yeah.
more of what you're saying.
No, I agree with you. Like our animation supervisor slash director is one of the masters in stop motion.
Oh,
I mean he was animating Gumby.
you'll have to introduce me.
His name's Harry Walton. I mean you look up he's
Done.
got his
He's going to be my next guest.
he's gonna be a next guest. He'll be happy to. I'm sure he'll be happy to come talk on the show. But he's amazing. He comes from a discipline of um, where it's like when people commit to a project, they see it all the way through.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, there's no guesswork. With folks like him, like people that I've worked with him that have been of that generation or even generation leading up to mine. It's like you hand them something, they go with it, they get it done, and then there's a whole nother generation, which is also another thing you learned in business school. It's like a whole nother generation wants to be told exactly what to do. They want you to present everything to them, and those are the people that folks that are that's going to be the future of animation, but that's not what the business needs. The business needs people that are self-starters, that are committed, that can get stuff done on their
Gotcha.
own. Yeah.
That makes sense. So maybe if somebody's listening and they're like, you know what, I actually identify with feeling more comfortable with being told what to do, what would you suggest to them to get more of that self-starting attitude and
Well, I would say is like first of all, it's like you're in this industry. Why?
yeah,
Because you want
right.
to you want to be creative, right? You want to be create and you want to express your creativity and you want to be creative. You don't want to be a tool. Like the industry already has a bunch of tools. You as an individual, as a person, what our industry is looking for is people that can execute and have ideas. that's the thing that is in shortage, is like people with ideas. Those are the people that are going to last and have longevity in the business. People that think like, hey, just tell me what to do. It's like, well, you can get that overseas if you want. It's like there's entire factories full of people that are told what to do, but may not want to be creative. But if you're really don't care about, you want to be told what to do, then you got to figure out which industry works better for you. Because
That makes sense. And especially when you're a smaller studio, like I mean smaller, you're not like Disney or whatnot.
Yeah.
You don't like, you need people, you need a different type of person to fit into that culture specifically.
Yeah, we need people that are curious. I mean, I'll briefly tell you a story about a guy who worked with years ago, and he was a really good animator. And then we came to a point where like, hey, can you do a previs or animate the camera on this? And he said, I don't know how to animate a camera. And went, what?
Okay,
and
bye.
he goes, I've never had to animate a camera. Somebody else has always done it for me. And went, and you've never been curious to know how to animate a camera? And it was like clear that at that point, it's like, I can't use you after next week because you don't want to learn how to do it. You never touched a camera.
Yeah. Crazy.
So yeah, that's my story.
Well, I mean, there's something to be said for, finding your thing and staying within it as well. Like that's totally neat as well. But anyways, Mo, it's been a pleasure. Is there anything else you wanted to share as we're wrapping up here?
It's still a good industry and it's fun to work in.
I love that. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Well,
I can't imagine doing anything else. You too.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure chatting and hearing your story, and best of success with the studio and everything going forward as you're moving completely online. I think that's great.
Thank you, Terry. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and of course. And if you're listening and you want to, reach out to Mo or follow his work, you can check out his studio's website, which is brainzoostudios.com. And I'll include a link to that in the description of this chat. And that's all for now. So thank you. Thank you so much for listening. Okay, bye. The music for this podcast was composed by Will Farmer and the graphics by Daniel Abensauer. I encourage you to look them up if you enjoyed their work.